Welcome to the SpiritWoke Podcast, podcasting from the beautiful city of Stillwater, the birthplace of Minnesota. Are you going through a spiritual awakening? Do you wish to learn more about continued spiritual growth and want to meet others who are on a similar journey? We hope that this podcast and its community can be a meaningful resource for you. The SpiritWoke Podcast welcomes special guests from around the globe who share personal stories of their awakening journey, along with details of spiritual abilities they've developed along the way. So buckle up and get ready for this exciting episode. And now, here's your host, Adam Dins.
Friends, welcome back to the SpiritWoke Podcast. Today, I am so thrilled to have very special guest, Amy Hoyt, join us to talk about her spiritual journey, her belief in speaking our truth, and what she refers to as our cosmic family. And if you've missed any of our previous podcasts, please visit spiritwoke.com and check out our awesome library of episodes. Now, with all of that being said, although it wasn't that much, we're going to welcome Amy to the podcast. So, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It is a total pleasure. And I've been looking forward to having you on the podcast and talking to you about whatever it is that comes up, because, you know, I think you're an absolutely fascinating being, and I've been a fan of yours for a while, and I'm really happy we're able to make this work.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of meant to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Amy, you know, I love to ask people who come onto the podcast, you know, a lot of folks who listen to the show, they're going through a spiritual awakening, they're experiencing things that maybe they don't have anybody else to talk to about. And so they listen into the show to really, you know, find that connection, to find a community, and to realize that they're not alone out there. Others of us that are going through a similar thing. And so we're all at different places in our journey. And so I just love when guests share a little bit about their story. So would you be cool with telling us a little bit about how you discovered your spiritual path?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that in life, you have many awakenings, many layers, kind of like an onion. And my awakening started very early on as a child, and had many progressions throughout, you know, my teens. I pushed it all away, spirituality in general. And then in 2018, I just kind of had my big awakening. And it was very profound. And when that happens, you go through this transition where you want to share so badly with the people around you. But in turn, it's like, oh, you know, I sound like Crazy Town, USA here. You know? So I guess my real big spiritual awakening, there was lots of little breadcrumbs through the whole thing. And after I had pushed away just who I was denying my spirit side. I got really heavy into numbing a lot of it out of fear. And once I allowed myself to get back into meditation and connecting with source energy, it was just this crazy, profound, how do I say this? Leaving my body and going to heaven and meeting the source of all. And just hearing telepathically the voice and the warmth and the words of just like, I've been waiting for you, my child. And yeah, that just kind of opened me up to, you know, I knew we were alone, but I didn't realize that it was just so like, oh, that's me. That's me talking to me in this really like bizarre way. It was like so familiar. So yeah, that was definitely the big one for me. And then after that, all of my channels just busted wide open. And it's just been, yeah. But realizing as a child, I would call it the voice. You know, the voice is speaking, not my own dialogue. It's something with past knowledge. You know, realizing as a 5-year-old kid that I didn't even understand what those words meant. So yeah, it's been a progression.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, what a profound experience that is. I mean, so when you share that you repressed, you kind of repressed it for a while. Was it because you were afraid of what you were experiencing, or was it just in your family that, as a child in your home that wouldn't be accepted, or were you afraid of back then, as a child, of kind of exploring what you were experiencing?
Well, actually, it was very accepted in my family. I'm not the only one. And I believe that's why my mother kept me away from society, just because my sisters and I have abilities. And I remember speaking to the earth and the plants and the wind and the rain. And she taught me how to meditate very early on, and she's very supportive. So it wasn't ever that pushed that side of me away. It was actually kind of my scared, hurt ego and being woken up by earthbounds and interdimensional things that kind of latched on to me. And when you're a light and you're a lighthouse, you're a beacon, all things come. And unfortunately, some of the darker things come before the light, being that feeds off of fear. So that was a big part of me turning it off for quite a while. I had always been interested in the paranormal because that was one thing. Ghosts were people, and I wasn't afraid of that. But to interact with a reptilian as a child and a shadow person and things that are, crouching over you, like hitting the ceiling, looking down upon you in your cradle, it's pretty frightening. So yeah, I guess I just threw my teen years pushing it away and kind of filling it with lower vibrational things. It's like my soul was just like, enough. Like, I can't be scared. I can't, drink myself to sleep because I'm afraid of a ghost waking me up. That's just, I have to take control of my life. And not being able to speak freely about it was very depressing.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I just felt my throat chakra completely closed, and I just felt lower than low, and those things like to kind of take control. And I just didn't know what to do and started soul searching. And I met this amazing palm reader in Portland, Oregon. And she flat out took all the attachments straight off of me and just completely changed my life.
Wow, that is really cool. That is really, really cool. Yeah, there's I can't imagine what that is like to experience that as a child. Some of those scary things. I have a friend of mine who I was working with him through hypnotherapy, and he's a very successful entrepreneur, worth a lot of money. He figured, okay, he's got problems sleeping. There must be something going on. So we got on a call and we just talked through so why don't you think you can sleep? Well, I got all these different excuses and different, reasons why. And we kept working backwards. And then as we went back further in his life, he said, I asked him, I said, did anything happen to you as a child, like somewhere between the ages of maybe 6 and 8 or 6 and 10 that scared you and that you think might keep you from sleeping, or did some kind of trauma? And he goes, oh, it's funny you mentioned that. He says, I was really sensitive as a child, and the shadow people used to come and visit me, and they would terrorize me at night. And this went on for 2 or 3 years, and I was like, wow, well, of course you can't sleep. You had this experience, and then he saw a psychologist that repressed those things, or I shouldn't say the psychologist repressed them, but through therapy he repressed them. And so we went back and did a current life regression, and we explored that age of 6 to 8, and he went right back and saw those same shadow figures, and we worked through some of that trauma that he experienced. But he too closed off, and his mother was very sensitive as well, and she saw them as well. And I think after that regression and sort of going back and confronting those, pardon the pun, but confronting the demons, he opened back up, starting to open back up after many years. And so that's definitely a process for sure. When you experience something, I could see how you just kind of want to ball up in a
yeah. It's very terrifying, and those things love the fear. It's like the energy, right? So it's I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, that particularly, but it is different in my adulthood because now I've learned from the angelic realm to be neutral with those entities and to not give them the power, and just to look at them with pure love and almost embrace them with just neutrality, because that's how do I say this? When I found out my origins and I was very vulnerable, and now I'm starting to speak about it publicly, I realized that I need to act accordingly. And many things will come, and it's not for me to judge, their agenda. And you can always feel when they're a little tricky, a little sneaky. And I usually just say, like, I appreciate the visit, man, but, I'm busy. Like, have a great day. It's the same way you should be with people who are negative. It's like, just protect yourself, ground yourself, and, they have no power over you. And that's we forget how powerful we are. We're interdimensional beings that are just this light force, this frequency, and we're here, and this is our domain. This is where we learn duality, and like through past life regression, I definitely found the strength that I needed to not suppress those memories anymore, but embrace them and realize that I was just kind of fearing myself, not really understanding that a lot of it was playing off of the subconscious as well.
Yeah, it's incredible when you go back and you look at a past life through the eyes of a memory versus, I presume going through it, and being able to really understand what the lesson is and because we all, I'm sure there was a reason in your life plan why you experienced those, shadow figures and reptilians at the moment in the time that you did. And of course, as a child, you don't understand that, but as you progress and as you kind of see how the pieces fit together, it all starts to make more sense, right?
Exactly. And it wasn't just the negative lower vibrational things. I actually had an amazing angel visit about 9 years old, and knew it was an angel and a man, in the form of a man. And so I knew that it wasn't all bad. I just knew that it was time for me to kind of find my voice. And instead of, like I said, fight against it, instead of trying to paddle up that stream and understand why, I just started flowing with the stream and was like, I know there's a beautiful higher power and I feel protected. And the more fear I give, the more it comes. So it's been a journey. And it's so funny. I walk into places that are haunted and I look at the people and I say, are you afraid of people in the grocery store? It's the same thing. Like, these people are not all these terrible, ghosts and ETs and interdimensionals and demonic things. It's all media. Like, if you're experiencing these things and looking at a movie and expecting it to be this way, then you kind of let the media win, because they're giving you this idealistic of, they're always bashing on ETs, and I don't have a single bad experience with ETs whatsoever.
I'm so happy you brought up ETs, because I think that takes us into our next question, which I've been really looking forward to asking you about. And you and I have chatted. You've talked about our cosmic family and extraterrestrials, and even your origins in that realm. And so I'm so excited. I just want you to just school us right now on what all that is.
Well, there are a lot of people here that are in a human form that before were not necessarily human, what we call it ETs. I mean, we're the ETs of this planet, right? And people forget that. It's not so weird to think that others exist other places. A lot of us have been sent here and divinely guided to start speaking up about things in this world, in this planet, how to preach goodness and love and see everyone as an extension of yourself. And I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I was some, alien on some other planet. I always felt like that, being that I could sense and see the other world. Looking at people, I can see auras and their memories and things, and everyone wears their energy. And I thought, wow, is this just me? And meeting other people who say they're psychic, I'm starting to understand there's this deep cosmic connection. And when I see someone from somewhere else, it's like this deep knowing. And then they don't know it, if that makes sense. Like sometimes they don't understand. And the way I really truly found it out was self-discovery and past life regression, and realizing that it's not so profound. There's a lot of us here right now, a lot. We're the indigos, as they say, and it's so oddly familiar to meet people and look at them and know that they've been to Egypt, and know that they've come from Sirius, or to know they're Palladian, and to know that they're not in disguise. They're here living the human experience. But deep in their DNA is a mission, and not in the way you would think. Just being a light is being, fulfilling your mission. And finding that out was pretty mind-blowing. And finding out who I was, my name, my place of birth, my job before I was sent here. I went back to a memory of seeing myself for the last night as my true self before I was a human. I remember seeing myself being born and thinking, oh, my life's over. And then hearing a voice saying, no, this is your human life. This is your human life. This is your earth form. And I know there's other people out there that are waking up to this. Anybody who is just meditating and getting visions and dreams and piecing it together. It's an amazing movie, and it's unfolding and makes me feel very excited because people are starting to feel strong enough to talk about it, and not feel crazy, because we're not crazy. There's a lot of us here, and stumbling upon Dolores Cannon, everything clicked. Everything. Just unbelievable. So yeah, my name in that realm is Ithra, and I look like a crystal mermaid, just beaming light, almost with like opalescent skin. And my job before I came here was to help send souls to Earth through the Milky Way, which sounds pretty unbelievable, but a lot of us ETs in that, what I call Garden of Eden, which is definitely a dimension. I have very, very vivid memories of holding all these newborn babies and painting the constellations so they could find their way to their Earth parents. And the Galactic Council got together, and they wanted to choose me for this particular mission to help raise the awareness, I suppose, of the fact that there is source energy that's divinely guiding all of us, and that life never truly ever ends. And so when I see people, it's almost like I'm picking up on their soul origin, if that makes sense. Like, there are some people who have lived so many past lives here as human, and then there's some of us here right now that the past life prior to this, they were completely like alien to us humans. And many of us are here to help activate the DNA to raise the awareness, because the shift of the consciousness of, what they say 5D, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that's a lot to kind of digest, but
No, I can tell your authenticity, and I can, for those of you listening in, Amy and I are watching each other. We're on camera here looking at each other, and I can tell you how authentic she's being. This isn't, and I also want to say too that, I'm sure there's some people listening in going, what the hell is she
Yeah.
talking about? Right? Like what is she on? And I just want to say that, you know, I probably would have thought that too about Amy. However, in my study of hypnotherapy and reading lots of Dr. Newton and Dr. Brian Weiss and the pioneers of past life regression, what you'll find is that, there are a lot of people who, when put into the hypnotic state and they regress back to a past life, have extraterrestrial experience. This is not an uncommon phenomena. And I was actually really surprised as I was learning about past life regression and between life regression, how common it was that, when someone got into that hypnotic state and they walk through whatever that catalyst moment was where they begin to explore their past life, that they look down to see what kind of shoes they're wearing, and they're like, well, I'm not wearing shoes, I have these weird feet, they kind of look like dinosaur feet, and they're, so it sounds, it may sound a little bit different, but I just want you to know that for you guys listening in, that this is there's a lot of substance here. It happens to a lot of people. It's been happening for years and years and years, and so all of this is valid. And even when you study, the Dr. Newtons and the Dr. Weisses, the people who've had these experiences are not like, you and me, Amy, where they're hippy dippy, spiritual, whatever you call us. They're, maybe they're an accountant who is interested in learning about, did I have a past life? And it's like, holy moly, I don't know where I am, and not on Earth, it's somewhere else, And so that super conscious that we carry with us, those memories, it's all valid. And I'm so happy, Amy, that you found that, connection with home where you came from.
Yeah, and it was so incredibly validating, and it's so difficult as a human to be so vulnerable. And thinking back, being a child, looking up at the stars and saying, I just want to go home, ever since I could remember, and not understanding why, and never feeling quite of this world,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting and looking at the ocean and knowing that I could hear it and I could feel it, and it was familiar, and I didn't understand why I couldn't breathe underwater. There were all these things as a child that I was so confused about, and it brought me this inner peace. And I have never been somebody who's been afraid of people judging me. I've always felt kind of like a rainbow in the clouds. I just don't care. I just show up, and people can say hi or like me or not or whatever. But it's important that people know that it's not just spiritual people. Yeah, exactly. My brother is not a spiritual person whatsoever and has profound experiences. And he's worked for JPL, and he's very suit and tie, and I'm very alternative. But it's all ages, all races, and it's like I said, it's hard to be vulnerable, but I feel comfortable enough to speak about these things because they're not under this drug-induced state. I'm under meditation, hypnosis, and I couldn't make this stuff up. I just couldn't. And I'm so passionate about speaking freely about it because I want others to not feel that they have to keep it to themselves. I want people to feel normal, saying, oh, I'm from this planet. I remember this memory. I like to do this because it reminds me of home. So yeah, it's amazing. And when I see people, if they're open to it, I'll tell them their origins, and I have not had it once not resonate with them. It's amazing. A lot of these people are young. They're 20, they're 21. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, but I just feel like there's many waves of, awakenings and volunteers and committees. And I go into meditation and I meet with that council all the time. And it is like, it sounds like a sci-fi movie, but it's my life. And I'm very thankful for it because now I feel like inner peace, inner happiness.
Mm. Well, you are very much a rainbow in the sky. So that is a very apt description. So
Yeah. Well, and whenever I see the angelic realm, it's all rainbows. I mean, it's just this prism of just colors I could never even describe. And just beautiful. They're all just this like super gorgeous wings and eyes and rainbows and that's just kind of, I understand. It all makes sense. I mean, I read the Rainbow Body. I don't know if you've ever looked into that.
no.
The Tibetan scripture about these beings from heaven that are all rainbows. And once I found that, I was like, wow, I guess all kinds of cultures and people experience these things. But I didn't start digging until I started finding, if that makes sense. I had to get some answers to the things I saw,
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That is really profound. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's why I was so attracted to your podcast. I found it on Spotify just randomly. And I was so happy that people were speaking freely about channeling, about energy, and you just being so passionate about finding a community and helping a community and growing a community. That's why I was just like, I have to talk to this person. You inspired me to do this myself, to help.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. As somebody who doesn't have, or at least, I mean, I don't like to say I don't have, but haven't developed abilities in the psychic realm, if you will. From energy healing and working with different healing modalities. Yeah, but I don't I don't proclaim to be able to speak to um, to beings, or sometimes in meditation, for sure. It's not a regular occurrence, but every once in a while I'll have a cool experience. But it's an interesting position to be here, bringing awareness, sort of being the voice and bringing awareness to all of these things by bringing people like you on who share this. It's kind of mind-blowing. It's very similar to being a hypnotherapist, where I'm sitting in the chair, I've got someone in a trance, and they're just sharing these amazing things that they're experiencing from a past life or a between life. And I'm just taking notes. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, they probably have no idea how cool this is, but like, I'm just jonesing on it. It's such a really cool thing. And so, but it is interesting to be in that position. I mean, I've got such an awesome community of people that we've built through this podcast, and so many of them have gifts and abilities that are tremendous. And sometimes I feel a little bit like an outsider, kind of like the news, kind of like the sportscaster who's on the court, at the basketball game, who's never played a day of sports in their life, but they're talking to the athletes and asking questions. Sometimes that's how I feel, but I love it. I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. And I think the types of things that you're sharing are just so profound and interesting. And if it helps other people to connect with their essence, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Right. Yeah. And it's when I was searching so hard for answers, I, just like anyone, I'll watch this paranormal show, or maybe I'll go get my palm read. So when I went and got my palm read from this palm reader, it's profound too, what she's all about. She does archaic healing, which is healing that she was taught from the archangels. And her name is Muriel Martin. She has been such a light to me, and our age difference, doesn't even matter. She's just such a good friend. I highly recommend that people that are young start connecting with the trailblazers that did it before, because the knowledge is just amazing. And she really, I always think my third eye was kind of open, but the archaic healing she did just blasted my energy open. And that's when I started receiving the visitations from ETs. Was about 6 months after. And she told me very gently that I may be seeing and experiencing some things that were kind of outer worldly. And yeah, it was just 6 months, almost on the dot. I woke up and saw this huge light being, and it came over to me on the side of my bed, and I was scared, of course. Then I had remembered what she told me, and he moved over to the other side of the bed where my boyfriend was laying, and he put his fingers above him and started kind of using him like a marionette, like a little puppet. And he explained to me how fragile we are as humans. But if we only knew how to unlock certain parts of our minds, we would realize that we don't need to speak with our mouths, that we can, speak to each other in certain ways and frequencies. And it was so, so amazing. And he made my boyfriend actually kick me, and I started loosening up and laughing. And I was like, oh, this is a silly experience. And I realized how important it was to not be prejudiced or to be racist or to welcome. I welcome every earth person here. I love everyone. I see everyone as energy and souls. And for me to be scared of something that was just so beautiful, I thought, well, this is really silly. I don't need to be afraid, because I think initially the fear is what gets people to shy away from things like that. Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, the media is portraying these abductions, mm-hmm. And every single encounter I've had with, an ET, it's like they're healing parts of me that I didn't know hurt. Mm-hmm. And they're activating these different states of consciousness, and very, very gentle. And it's like, I realize they are angels. Mm-hmm. They are. And maybe angels came to us in human form, not to scare us. Because I'm not going to lie, some ETs are pretty bizarre looking. And they also think we're pretty bizarre looking.
I'm sure.
And they, it's very interesting it's like the downloads are just so amazing. And you get past the fear. And you realize that we are just all cosmic brothers and sisters, and there's no need. I mean, just like people, there's going to be some good ones and some not so good ones. But to embrace it and realize that, they're going to be with us very soon. I know this for certain. And it's important to be open to them, because they aren't here to hurt us at all. So get the fear out of your mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had it hasn't happened often, but I had I have a dear friend who's a brilliant intuitive, and she just volunteered. She said, "Hey, do you want me to, kind of just tell you a little bit about yourself?" And I'm like, of course I'm going to say yes, sure. Yeah. Tell me what is it? And she told me that I'm intergalactic, and that she explained there is this door above my head. She saw this door above my head, and it was orange, there's orange light. And she's like, I want you to visualize that when you meditate. And that's your connection back to where you come from. And I've done that. I don't do it all the time, but I do it sometimes. Of course, it's hard to kind of, I haven't really connected, I'd say, with that, with home. And I put that in quotes, but what I have had happen, which is really cool, is, I'm also a Reiki master, and I have clients that come in, and every once in a blue moon, when I'm working with someone on the table, or now virtually with distant Reiki, I can almost see, and I don't see it like a clear holographic type of vision, but I can see there's like, these beings around the table, almost like, the way I've explained it is like, if you've ever watched those shows where, like the emergency room shows where the doctors are all mm-hmm. operating on someone, and the nurses and the doctors are all around the body. And that's kind of what I've seen. Again, maybe not even seen, maybe just sensed, but I could still see it. It's hard to put it into words, but it doesn't happen often. But I always make sure to let my clients know that, because again, it's not about me. It's about what the experience was, but it is kind of mind blowing to think about it.
Oh, it doesn't, it is mind blowing at first until you kind of get used to it. And then it becomes very like, they're so much a part of my life at this point that they're like friends. Like I say, they're family. And with you, it's like this radiant green energy just flowing off of your shoulders, especially down through your hands. And so you're just a healer. You're just giving and giving, and you're getting out of the way and assisting. And when you assist, it's like different, how do I say this, different versions of even yourself coming in.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I'm seeing, because like your higher self and yourself are blending quite a bit, especially like it's a little distracting to see on camera, but we're all interdimensional and we all have a lot of help around us. And I've too sensed that. And it's all about perception. So if you were in a place of fear, maybe you'd see it as an operating table. But if you come from a place of compassion and love and realize that these things aren't going to probe you, they're not hurting you, they're assisting and healing.
Yeah,
And once
absolutely.
you allow, all of a sudden you allow, and you're on a couch. You're not on a gurney. You're on this beautiful, luscious couch, and they're there. And the first time I started working with these particular ETs that call themselves the like-minded, they came to me as monks. And these very peaceful monks. And I wasn't afraid. And then they said, are you ready to see our true form? And I said, absolutely. And they said, okay, well, we don't want you to freak. And I said, well, you have my word. And they shifted out of their bodies. And I realized one of them was sick. And they asked me if I could help heal them.
Wow.
So we started trading and healing each other. And I realized like we are healers, they are healers, and we come in groups to heal one another and hold space. So it makes perfect sense, especially when you see them in a circle. It's always in a circle, right? That's a beautiful energy.
Yeah, laying on of hands, just transmitting energy, channeling energy, and yeah, that's so. I have a question for you that I've kind of been fascinated by. Oh, maybe over the past year, I haven't gotten a great answer on it yet, and I'm a chronic Googler. Once I learn about something, I just devour information, and I guess. So I'll just ask: have you heard? I'm sure you've heard of the concept of soul traps.
Yes.
What is your take on that? Do you believe that that's a real thing? Well, let me. Well, why don't I ask you, because you'll probably articulate it far better than I will. So, could you share a little bit about what that concept is and what your thoughts on it are?
My thoughts are that when you're a soul and you come into this human experience, this school of, life school, it's important to rid yourself of certain karmic lessons. So the trap is like the wheel, right? And it's like, tit for tat. And I fully believe in karma, and I've seen it in action many, many times. But I don't believe that if you are in a point in your life where you can ascend, when you can rise above and see the lessons learned, instead of returning, it's like, why don't you get the answers within yourself and just climb the ladder of consciousness? And not, I don't like to say it's a trap. I think that's a kind of sounds negative in a way. It's like, I'm here and I know that I understand things a lot differently than a lot of other people. And it's not always my path to explain it to them because they're not ready to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about respectfully respecting others. And when you focus on yourself and you focus on trauma, you release the chains that bind you. So I think that the only reason you fully, truly return is to keep learning. And I've asked many times, especially the source, am I coming back? And they said, if you want to, if you choose to. So I do believe there's souls that choose to come back as well, because we have this vast, dense dimension where we get to have all these different souls at all these different times that are just experiencing, like Alan Watts, the universe, the universe experiencing itself.
Yes.
And so it's this beautiful balance that you're no different than your dog. You're no different than your cat. You're no different than a tree. It's all levels of consciousness. So is it a trap or is it a merry-go-round? How do you want to look at it?
Yeah, that's really profound. I've heard soul traps explained that way, and also another way, and that there is when your soul leaves your body and you're ascending and you see the light, that the light is the trap, and that it is it's sort of a trap set by extraterrestrials out there that want to keep us coming back, and it's sort of a prison, if you will, because and so the thought around it was, you don't go to the light, you avoid that. And I've heard one person articulate it as, well, you don't go towards an external light because we are the light, and that's where we go to ourselves because we are the light. But there's something about it that it's not like a really popular theory, soul traps, but it's fascinating because but yeah, I like the way you articulate it very well. That to me makes a lot of sense. It definitely has a ring of truth to it.
Yeah, I know from my near-death experience, I didn't see a tunnel or a light. I came out of my body, looked down at my body, realized that was me and that I had passed. And I had the choice. So if it was a trap, why would I have a choice? That's freedom.
Yeah.
So I knew if I turned around into what people say is the light. Now we've all put this light vision in our subconscious. So we believe what we perceive, that we understand, which is what we've been shown. And I knew if I turned around, I was going to see my guardians, my ancestors, and who would want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the midst of this big welcoming party. And I knew that it was important to come back into my body to fulfill my earth purpose. So I don't think that it is a trap. I don't think that extraterrestrials are allowed to trap us. I think that it's part of progression. And if being trapped in your body is a trap, you got to get good with yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever body you're in, whether it be a rock or a dog or a person or an ET, you've got to get good with yourself, because your soul never changes.
Yeah.
The body is just like an outfit that you keep changing over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of karma, it's like it's like the pendulum. You
Mm-hmm.
swing one way and you experience a life of decadence and luxury, and then your soul comes back and learns what it's like to live another way. And it's not good or bad. It's just experience, and with the goal of balance and returning to that equilibrium. And it's when you understand it, I always talk about, I'm just such a, Ram Dass to me is my guru, even though he's no longer with us. I listen to him all the time, and I just, I'll drink a little cacao and I'll lay out on the sun and I'll just listen to Ram Dass lectures and just let it sink in. And one of the things I love that he says, or his perspectives, is, the concept of we can't stand, there's nowhere for us to stand. And,
Mm-hmm.
He says we can, if we have both feet planted on the earth, then we live in this, we live in suffering. We're surrounded by pain and injustice and all of those terrible things. And if, as well as, love and all of the good things that come in life as well. And if you stand, call it your upper chakras, if in the spiritual realm all the time, you see everything as perfect. You see how perfect everything is, but you can't identify, you can't connect with the human experience. So the way to live is to not stand in either place by itself, but together, and you stand in both. So you see the beauty of it all, and how perfect everything is, while at the same time experiencing the suffering and the joy and the fear and all of those things. And what's more life and spirituality than that, and it's such a profound thing. And I think when we realize that, because I think we get so trapped in our humanness and in our day-to-day, I'm this body, I'm these thoughts, I'm this,
opinions.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so easy to forget that, to stop and just, it's interesting. I was doing a past life regression for a client, and she experienced a between life shortly after her past life began. And going into the past life, one of her goals was to awaken. She wanted to awaken. And so as she experienced this between life where she, went into the other realm, if that's what we'll call it, and she met one of her guides, and one of her guides said to her, just look up at the sky. Or she said something along the lines of, humans make awakening so complex. And she said, all you have to do is look up in the sky and let it remind you of your vastness.
Yeah.
And it's so profound and so beautiful.
It's so simplistic. Yeah. And so just to the point, and just very, whenever I speak to the ETs, they don't even describe space. I said, what is this space? We call it Star Garden. So they see it as this luscious, beautiful atmosphere, this garden where things grow, and that was really the way they articulate is so simplistic, to our human language. And it's so beautifully put. And it just makes me feel like you're just talking to these super intelligent beings that are trying to kind of toddlerize it for us, right?
Right.
And I mean, how many of us have looked up at the sky and thought, why are we here? I think everyone can relate to that. But all the answers are within yourself. And it's important not to be too airy-fairy, right? It's important to be grounded. It's important to be human and to live this experience. This is why we've been sent here. Whether we've been sent as a human a million times or just a new soul who needs to experience things and progress, because we became this society where we're so disconnected from spirit. But at the same time, a lot of us believe in ghosts and a lot of us believe in aliens. So the best way to hide all this truth is to put it in the open, but then it's taboo. So it's this very, very strange balance of things. And I do believe that the Egyptians got it really right. If you read the Book of the Dead, or the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you start to open your awareness. And it's important to be aware. Maybe you don't have to believe or accept everything, but don't close off other people's ideas, because it's just, again, an extension of your own.
Yeah, we're all the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Nice meeting me.
Yes.
We forget to return, to go back, to remember to forget again. Yes. And I'm glad that a lot of us are remembering who we were and who we are and where we're going.
And remembering our infinite vastness, our eternal soul.
Exactly. And we're all going to return to this beautiful, I'm telling you, I've passed away, and the energy is just pure bliss, pure love. It's like just this pure ecstasy of happiness, and there's nothing to fear at all, especially not being trapped.
Yeah, I've experienced that once, but through sacred medicines. I was at a ceremony in, of all places, Houston, Texas, and there was a shaman who was there who came up, and it was a Bufo ceremony, and after Bufo, there was a Changa ceremony.
Oh wow! And
I don't know if you're familiar with Changa, but it's okay. So Amy's nodding her head yes, and. What I experienced was, what I saw, I can't explain, but it all felt really familiar, and it felt like home, and then it became this just beautiful white. I don't even want to call it a light. I don't know what it was, but it was the most beautiful white. It's not even white. It was just this thing, and the love, and it's hard. It really is hard to find words to explain it. But if you've seen it, all you need to do is see it once, though, and always remember, because our job isn't to live up in that light right now, and it's not to live in the a different channel state all the time, but to be able to see it every once in a while, or just once, and know that this is where I come from, whatever this thing is, and just to have reverence and to love one another. I mean, when you experience that essence of who you are, and you experience that love, that it's not like boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, mother, father kind of love.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's just overwhelming. It's like how God would love his or her children, right? Like, if we're going to put it in English, it's a
Right.
God type of love, the type of love that the universe has, just unexplainable. Once you experience that, you just never look at anything the same ever again.
Oh no. And if you are into meditation and you start to do sun meditations, and you realize that that light is maybe the closest thing earthly that we have to it. But when you hear that voice, when you're experiencing that frequency, that, the God frequency, the source power, it's almost like the most comfortable warmth you've ever felt, penetrating your bones, your soul, your everything. And it's like beyond being in a blissful state. And I can always tell when someone has connected with it, because their aura changes all around the top of them. It's almost like they have an extension, or what they call etheric, or etheric wings. It's an extension of, Kundalini is one thing, but this is totally something different. And, it's knowing other experiencers and looking at them and being like, oh, I see you, and it's like this deep, very like welcoming, almost like finding your tribe that you've always looked for. And when I see the auras, it's this big whiteness around all the auras of just the inner connection and the guidance. And it's important to allow it. And if it doesn't happen for you, don't force it. Let it come, and be content with where you are. You're exactly where you need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about that a lot on the podcast. We're always where we're supposed to be, and nobody's journey is the same, and we all have different fingerprints on our hands, and we're the same. Even though we're all the same, we all have our own unique fingerprint, and yeah, just have peace with where you are, and just know that there's nowhere else you're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's really important to remember, because we are living in this very connected, disconnected world. And a lot of the ETs that I interact with, they say, if you could just put down your handhelds, which is phones, or, tablets, things like that, connect with each other, stare into each other's eyes. That we have this very, very disconnect, where people are very awake or they're very asleep, and they're just staring into their phones at the ground. They're not connecting with each other the way they used to. It's just disconnect from everything. And moving to LA, I really realized how much it's changed. People aren't even looking at each other and saying good morning. And that's really strange. Why wouldn't you welcome yourself to the day?
Yeah.
So, it's important to be able to be the example of what you want to see in others. And we're all human. We're all going to slip up. But overall, I realize everywhere I go, my perspective has altered a lot of people's thinking. And I'm glad for that.
Well, and that's why I couldn't wait to have you on the show today, because I hope that this episode reaches, well, I know it'll reach everybody that it's supposed to reach, but I hope selfishly that's everybody on this planet. So,
right.
And when I say hope selfishly, not so we get lots of listens and the numbers go up, but because people need to hear this and hear you. And so it's hard to believe that we've been talking for about an hour already. Amy, would you share with our audience maybe what you're working on, if anything, or how people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. I recently just decided I'm going to make a YouTube channel, and it's not to get likes. It's honestly to reach just as many people as I can, because I felt so isolated as a child, and I want people to be able to speak freely. So my YouTube channel is coming out soon, and I believe it will be called Rainbow Messenger. And then my Instagram is Prism, like a Prism Rainbow Messenger. And I'm totally open to talk to as many people need just validation. It's like once you have validation, you have this like peace about it. Like when I first started speaking to other people that have these ET experiences, I realized like, wow, okay, now I kind of feel normal. So I'm always open to be near and to hold space. And I think a lot of us go through depression and anxiety because we don't know what to do and we're keeping it in. And I don't want people to get sick from that. So I'm all about healthy mind, healthy body, healthy heart, happiness, longevity. Speak about it. I'm not going to judge. I mean, listen to the things I've said. You can do it too. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. But I'm an open ear.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I don't have a big goodbye today because my mind's kind of blown right now. So what I'm just going to take some time after the podcast and process everything that we've learned today, and just know if you're listening, well, obviously you're listening to the podcast. So if you go to SpiritWoke.com, you can find the page where Amy's podcast is hosted, and I'll make sure there is a link there where you can connect to her YouTube page and where you can connect to her on Instagram. So don't worry about remembering if you're driving or whatever and you missed what Amy shared in terms of how to get a hold of her. You can find that information on SpiritWoke.com. And thank you everybody so much for listening in and taking time out of your day to spend with us. And Amy, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. Bless you and everybody else that listens in. I just hope for everyone to find some peace and happiness through this.
Absolutely. And Amy has already agreed to come back again. So there's going to be more Amy on SpiritWoke. So very excited about that. And I'm sure you are too. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much again. And until next time, be well. Namaste.
Thanks for listening to the SpiritWoke Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to check out our website, SpiritWoke.com, and connect with the SpiritWoke community on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search SpiritWoke. Join us next time for another edition of the SpiritWoke Podcast. Namaste.